Welcome to the deep dive. We take your sources, get you the core knowledge fast. Today's a bit different, maybe a bit of an adventure. We're diving into excerpts from Stephen King's novel Insomnia. One of you actually sent these in.
Exactly. And look, we're not doing a book report here. Think of this more like we're exploring the events and the people in these pages almost as if they were, well, real things happening. Our mission really is to see what we can maybe understand about, human behavior under serious stress and what happens when reality starts to unravel a bit.
Okay, so starting point. Ralph Roberts, he's got this really bad insomnia kicking in after his wife Carolyn died. And at first he's thinking, mundane stuff, right? Things maybe a lot of us worry about as we get older.
Precisely. Yeah, he's considering like prostate issues, kidneys, the usual suspects for sleep problems. But this isn't just tossing and turning. It gets to the point where Ralph, he just can't fall back asleep at all. And this constant wakefulness, it leads to this heightened awareness, even weird physical feelings, like his eyes feeling, quote, as big as doorknobs.
Wow.
It makes you think about that link between sleep and how we normally filter things, doesn't it?
Totally. And it's not just the waking up early. He tries, going to bed later, delaying sleep, but that's where it gets really weird. He starts waking up in like odd places in his house, his armchair maybe, and he doesn't remember moving.
Exactly. It's like his waking self and his sleeping self, they're just bleeding together. It's got to be incredibly disorienting.
Oh, for sure. Imagine your own actions being a mystery.
And what's fascinating there is that blurring, right, between conscious and unconscious, the sleepwalking thing, plus his senses getting sharper. It kind of suggests his brain is just operating differently now. And then we find out about these auras coming back, something he saw as a kid, apparently.
Yeah, like back in 1941 or something.
Right. So it's not just tiredness. It's like this whole other layer of sensory input is just reappearing.
So is this heightened perception maybe a result of the insomnia? Like his brain is rewiring?
Could be. Or maybe a response to the grief, the stress.
Yeah.
Well, it's hard to say, but it's definitely happening.
Then things take a sharp turn. This really unsettling encounter Ralph has with Ed Deepno.
Oh, yeah. This is not your average neighbor dispute.
No kidding. Ed's acting super erratically, right? Ranting about some Susan Day and baby killers.
And then he actually gets violent with his wife, Helen. It's shocking.
And there's that weird detail about some heavyset guy calming him down and this warning about a barrel. It just ramps up the strangeness.
It really does. It feels like we're watching someone's whole reality just fracturing.
And this encounter, it's a really stark look at how intense emotions and maybe some extreme beliefs can just explode into violence.
Definitely. Ed's accusations, they sound wild, but they probably connect to some specific issue in town, right? This Susan Day woman care thing.
And Ralph steps in to protect Helen.
Yeah.
You think maybe his own grief, his own altered state makes him more sensitive to that?
It's possible, yeah. It speaks to that basic human instinct to intervene, but maybe his own vulnerability amplifies it. And it makes you wonder if this wasn't the first time Ed was abusive.
Yeah, the text hints at that.
And you mentioned woman care. McGovern, another character, mentions a petition about it.
Yeah.
Seems like that's the flashpoint for Ed.
Right. And after the assault, you have McGovern involved, the police, Detective Laydecker. The real world stuff kicks in.
But then the bail set for Ed is surprisingly low, isn't it?
Yeah. That stood out. Given what he did, it makes you question things.
It does. Even in fiction, that detail hits home. It echoes real frustrations about how sometimes the system seems to handle domestic violence cases. That contrast is jarring.
And then, adding to the mix, there's this other character, Dorrance Marsteller.
Ah, yes. The old guy with the poems.
McGovern calls him creepy, but Ralph kind of sees him as just eccentric and original.
Right, and he has that weird cinnamon smell.
Yeah.
And gives Ralph that strange quote, ugh.
Each thing I do, I rush through so I can do something else. Yeah.
That's it. It's like these unusual people are just being drawn into Ralph's world now that his perception is changing. Dorrance feels like an outsider, maybe with a different sense of time or something.
McGovern just dismisses him, but Ralph's more open. Maybe because of what he's going through himself.
Very possibly. Makes him less quick to judge the unconventional.
So Ralph's desperate for sleep, obviously. He goes to the Rite Aid, meets the pharmacist, Joe Weiser.
And this isn't your standard pharmacy chat, is it?
Not at all. Weiser opens up about his own insomnia.
And he actually advises against sleeping pills. Tells Ralph to focus on having coherent and lucid dreams.
Which is pretty counterintuitive advice from a pharmacist, you'd think.
Totally. Weiser becomes this really interesting figure. His advice is unconventional, but because he's been through it, it carries weight. That focus on dream quality, even without sleep. It's intriguing. Like maybe our minds are still doing important work even when sleep is messed up.
And then there's another weird visual thing. Ralph sees this bright gray glow around Weiser.
Yeah. And that seals the deal for Ralph, right? He decides to trust Weiser.
It's like Weiser's marked somehow, connected to this other stuff Ralph's seeing.
Could be. Another sign of Ralph's perception shift. And then, separate but related, we hear about Ed Deepno again.
Oh, right, the doll throwing thing at Woman Care.
Yeah, a really disturbing protest. Clearly meant to intimidate people like Barbara Richards, who was there, shows how extreme beliefs can lead to some really ugly actions.
Definitely crosses a line into harassment.
And as Ralph's insomnia gets worse, these visuals just keep escalating. They get stranger, more disturbing.
He starts seeing, what are they called? Death bags? And balloon strings?
Yeah, attached to people. Even the neighbor's dog, Rosalie.
Wow, that's profoundly weird. Imagine seeing that everywhere. How isolating must that feel?
Incredibly. This is where it gets really surreal. These death bags, balloon strings.
Right.
You could read them as metaphors, right?
Like for life force or fate or burdens people carry.
Maybe. Something like that. The fact that Ralph sees them suggests his normal filters are just gone. He's seeing a whole different layer of reality.
And then he has that run-in at the library. Some gray-haired guy calls him a centurion and a baby killer.
Echoing Ed Deepno's earlier rants, yeah. It hints that this isn't just Ed. There's this wider conflict or paranoia simmering in Derry.
With its own weird terminology like centurion.
Exactly. And Ralph, because of his state, is suddenly getting pulled into it. Targeted, even.
Then the news about May Losher's death, that adds another layer of, well, dread.
And Ralph has that dream connecting her death to his wife, Carolyn's.
Right, like it's all connected somehow. Leidecker, the detective, thinks heart attack at first.
The logical explanation. But then, Charles Pickering and Ed Deepno get arrested, related to the woman care protests.
So it gets tangled. Personal loss, public conflict.
It suggests this deeper connection, maybe beyond normal understanding. And the arrests show these conflicts have real, possibly fatal results.
Ralph actually tries talking to McGovern about all the weird stuff he's seeing.
And how's that go?
About as real as you'd expect. McGovern's skeptical, plus he's completely wrapped up in his friend Bob Polhurst, who's dying.
Right. So you've got Ralph seeing these bizarre things, and McGovern dealing with very real, tangible grief and loss.
It really highlights how hard it is to communicate something so far outside normal experience, doesn't it? How do you even start to explain seeing death bags?
Exactly. McGovern's reaction is totally understandable. It grounds the story in human reality, contrasting sharply with Ralph's journey, and it shows how isolated Ralph must be feeling.
And then the little bald doctors show up.
Ah, yes. Here we go.
Ralph starts seeing these, like, identical bald figures, and he gets this growing sense of unease about them. What are they? What do they want?
And the key detail, they don't have the balloon strings Ralph sees on everyone else.
Right. That immediately sets them apart, makes them seem other.
Totally.
Yeah.
This feels like a major shift into the supernatural. They don't seem human. Maybe they're external forces, manipulators, something operating outside the normal rules. The lack of strings could mean they aren't subject to fate or life force like others. Very distinct.
But then something shifts. Lois Chasse, another character. She starts seeing auras, too. Like Ralph.
Because that's huge for Ralph, right?
Yeah.
Validation.
Absolutely. It means maybe he's not just losing his mind. It creates this bond between them.
And it raises the question, is this altered perception something anyone could develop under the right or wrong circumstances, like extreme stress?
Maybe. And their interactions with one of these doctors, Doc #3, get really creepy, especially involving the dog, Rosalie.
Yeah, this Doc #3 has this, like, cannibalistic vibe, and he has McGovern's hat.
Ugh, yeah. That's just disturbing. Blurs the line between weird and actively menacing.
Definitely introduces a more direct threat. This other reality is intruding, possessing familiar objects, posing a danger. That cannibalistic description is deeply unsettling, predatory, malevolent maybe.
And Lois is really struggling. She mentions someone named Janet who wants to have her institutionalized.
Right, because she's seeing things others aren't.
But Ralph sees this dignity about her, even though she's falling apart emotionally.
It's poignant, isn't it? It shows how society often reacts to things it doesn't understand, trying to pathologize or contain them. Lois's situation really highlights that.
And her dignity, despite it all. Yeah, that speaks volumes about resilience.
Then the bald man shows up again. Rosalie, the dog, is terrified.
But Lois can only see, like, a shimmer.
Right. So they aren't perceiving him the same way. Maybe Ralph's deeper into it. Or maybe sensitivity varies.
Interesting. Rosalie's fear seems like primal confirmation that this guy is bad news, though.
Definitely. Even if Lois can't fully see him, the dog knows.
And Ralph and Lois start entering these altered states. They talk about the centurions. Ralph seems to be able to, like, manipulate light.
Okay, so things are really escalating now. They're not just seeing things, they're interacting, maybe gaining abilities connected to this other reality.
Becoming players, not just observers.
Possibly. Their discussion about centurions suggests they're tuning into some larger conflict.
Their journey leads them to Derry Home, the hospital.
And inside, the auras are even stronger, more intense.
Yeah. And they see some weird snake thing and realize they can subtly affect things around them.
The hospital, a place of vulnerability, becomes this amplifier for the strangeness. Their ability to influence things suggests they're gaining some agency, maybe.
They actually meet two of the bald doctors there, Clotho and Lachesis.
Okay, names from Greek mythology, the Fates.
Right. And they talk cryptically about short-timers. Ralph and Lois get this strong feeling they're being manipulated.
So direct contact, but it just raises more questions. Short-timers, like people with limited time or a specific role. It feels like they're pawns.
Then they get the news about McGovern. He's died.
Oh, no. That's tragic.
And they find out Atropos, another one, the earring thief, was responsible.
Atropos, the fate who cuts the thread of life. Wow. Okay, so this conflict has very real, fatal consequences. It brings it crashing down to a personal level. McGovern's death makes the stakes incredibly high.
So Ralph and Lois head to High Ridge. They find Helen, Ed's wife, and other women at a safe house.
Bringing back that thread of domestic violence.
Yeah.
Showing how these larger, stranger forces are intersecting with very human problems.
Exactly. And then Charles Pickering shows up. There's this tense confrontation.
And someone intervenes?
Yeah, this woman with a gray ribbon aura, another unknown player.
Man, it just gets more complicated. It's like multiple factions are operating here, not just the bald doctors. Ralph and Lois are caught in the middle of who knows what.
They escape a fire, run into Dorrance Marsteller again.
The creepy original poet guy.
But now his aura is described as incredibly vibrant. And he tells them the rally, presumably Ed's rally, is going ahead no matter what.
Huh. His aura changing. Maybe he's more connected now. And that message about the rally feels like inevitability, like some things are just fated.
Could be. Then the atmosphere around the Civic Center where the rally is feels super oppressive. Ralph feels like he's trapped in a death bag.
Wow. That's a powerful image. Like impending doom focused on that one spot. That place is clearly significant.
They head back towards Harris Avenue, taking old railway tracks, and they see Atropos's spore.
Like a trail of destruction.
Yeah.
Making the threat visible, tangible.
Yeah, exactly. Physical evidence of his destructive presence leads right back towards their homes.
Chilling. Makes it very real.
And they find his lair, full of stolen items.
Like McGovern's hat.
McGovern's hat, Joe Weiser's comb, things connecting Atropos directly to people they know.
Oh, man. So it becomes deeply personal. Not just fighting some abstract evil, but protecting their friends.
Then the confrontation with Atropos himself. He threatens Lois.
And Ralph does. It's something weird with her slip.
Yeah, he uses Lois's slip against Atropos. It's this desperate, kind of bizarre, but maybe ingenious move.
Shows resourcefulness, right. Using the mundane in an extraordinary way. Whatever works when you're facing down.
Right.
Well, whatever Atropos is.
After that, they meet Clotho and Lachesis again in Strawford Park.
The other two fates.
And there's this exchange. McGovern's sweater, Ed Deepno's wedding band.
Like a payment. Or settling some cosmic account.
Maybe. And they get this glimpse into another reality. It just hints at how much bigger and weirder everything is. Rules we don't understand.
Definitely suggests layers upon layers beyond our normal perception.
Then the climax hits. Ed Deepno on an airplane. But he's changed.
Right. That horrific transformation. And Ralph tries to intervene.
Followed by escaping and exploding Portison. It's just chaos.
Pure surreal chaos. The human conflict with Ed merging completely with the supernatural.
And their final chat with Clotho and Lachesis seems to signal maybe an end. Or at least a pause to their direct involvement.
Feels like a release from the immediate crisis. Yeah, maybe a temporary truce or conclusion to that specific arc.
So afterwards, life kind of goes back to normal-ish.
A semblance of it, yeah. But they remember, Ralph's heightened perceptions fade eventually.
But you can't just unsee all that, can you?
Probably not. It suggests the experience leaves a permanent mark, even if the visions fade. Their whole understanding of reality has shifted.
And those themes stick with you, right? Choice versus fate, these unseen forces. How much control do we really have?
Exactly. And then there's that final hint. Ralph feels this throbbing in his arm, senses the time of the promise is almost here.
Uh-oh. So maybe it's not over.
Suggests not. It leaves that lingering question. Was the return to normal just temporary? Is there more to come?
Wow. Okay, this has been a really different kind of deep dive, digging into these insomnia excerpts. Definitely some aha moments thinking about perception, reality, the seen versus the unseen.
Absolutely. It really pushes you to think about the edges of your own perception, doesn't it?
Yeah.
To wonder if there are other dimensions, other forces influencing things in ways we just don't normally notice.
So for you listening, maybe this dive gets you thinking about your own awareness. Like, what does it really mean to be awake? Are there different levels? And how do we make choices when things happen that just don't fit our neat boxes of understanding? Maybe it sparks an interest in King's other work or just gets you pondering the unseen complexities that might be right here in our own reality.